You're unwanted." The words followed Evelyn Carter into the storm long after the ceremony ended. Thunder rolled across the mountains as she stumbled down the muddy trail, leading away from Silver Creek Pack, her soaked dress clinging to her legs and her heart feeling heavier than the dark clouds above. Just minutes earlier, dozens of wolves had stood beneath the ceremonial pavilion and watched her mate reject her without hesitation. No one had stepped forward. No one had spoken for her, not even the people she had grown up beside. Rain hammered the earth in sheets, turning the path into a river of cold water, but Evelyn barely noticed. The ache in her chest drowned out everything else. She kept walking. The forest stretched before her like a wall of shadows, and still she walked. The storm seemed determined to swallow the world whole. Branches swayed overhead. Lightning flashed between the trees. Somewhere behind her, the lights of the pack faded into the distance until they disappeared completely. Evelyn wrapped her arms around herself and lowered her head against the wind. At 22 years old, she had imagined many futures. None of them looked like this. None of them ended with her wandering alone through a storm while the people she trusted celebrated her humiliation. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. The moon goddess had a cruel sense of humor. Rejected Omegas were pitted at best and ignored at worst. Tomorrow, everyone in the territory would know her name for all the wrong reasons. Another flash of lightning illuminated the forest. For a brief second, she saw twisted branches and silver rain glittering in the darkness. Then everything vanished again. The deeper she traveled, the quieter the world became. Even the distant sounds of the pack disappeared. Only the storm remained. Evelyn finally stopped beneath a massive pine tree and pressed a trembling hand against the rough bark. Her legs were exhausted. Her eyes burned from unshed tears. She told herself she would not cry. Not for him. Not for anyone. The wind answered with another powerful gust that sent fallen leaves spinning around her feet. Then something strange happened. A scent drifted through the rain. It was faint at first, almost impossible to notice beneath the smell of wet earth and pine. Yet it felt different. Sharp, wild, unfamiliar. Evelyn frowned and looked around. No one should have been this far into the forest during a storm like this. The territory beyond these woods was largely abandoned. Most wolves avoided it after sunset. She listened carefully. For several seconds there was nothing. Then she heard it. A low sound carried by the wind. Not thunder. Not an animal call. Something else. Something that sounded almost like pain hidden beneath a growl. Her pulse quickened. Every instinct told her to keep moving. To leave. To forget whatever was waiting in the darkness. But another sound followed, slightly louder this time. Evelyn turned toward it despite herself. Rain streamed down her face as she stared into the black forest ahead. Somewhere beyond the trees, something was waiting. And for reasons she could not explain, it felt as though that something had already found her. The sound came again, carried through the rain like a thread pulling her deeper into the darkness. Evelyn should have turned around. Every lesson she had ever learned told her that nothing good waited in the abandoned woods beyond pack territory. Yet her feet moved forward before her mind could argue. The storm raged overhead as she pushed through dripping branches and crossed a narrow stream swollen by the downpour. Cold water soaked through her shoes, but she barely felt it. The strange scent lingered in the air, growing stronger with every step. It reminded her of winter forests and distant mountains, sharp and clean despite the storm. Another low sound echoed between the trees. This time it was closer. Evelyn slowed. Her heart pounded. Lightning flashed across the sky, briefly illuminating a clearing nearly 30 yards ahead. She froze. Something large stood near a fallen cedar tree. For an instant she could only make out a dark silhouette before the night swallowed it again. The shape did not move. The rain continued pouring from the sky. Evelyn swallowed hard and took another cautious step. Then another. The scent became overwhelming now. Powerful. Wild. Unlike anything she had ever encountered before. A strange feeling stirred inside her chest. Not fear exactly. Something closer to curiosity mixed with concern. She had always possessed an inconvenient habit of worrying about others more than herself. It was one of the reasons the pack considered her weak. As she approached the clearing, the wind shifted. Another flash of lightning revealed the figure again. This time she saw enough to stop breathing for a second. It was a wolf. The largest wolf she had ever seen. Its dark fur was soaked by rain, blending almost perfectly with the night around it. Even from a distance, she could sense unusual strength in its presence. Yet something was wrong. The animal remained perfectly still beneath the storm. Evelyn crouched slightly, trying not to startle it. Most wolves would have fled long ago. This one simply stood there as if exhausted. Thunder rolled overhead. The wolf slowly lifted its head. Silver eyes reflected the next flash of lightning. The sight sent a chill through her. Those eyes were intelligent. Far too intelligent. They fixed on her with an intensity that made the rest of the forest disappear. Evelyn could not look away. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Rain streamed between them like a curtain. Then the wolf took one unsteady step forward. Only one. Its legs seemed to falter beneath its weight. Concern immediately replaced caution. "Hey," Evelyn called softly through the storm. "Easy." The words felt ridiculous the moment they left her mouth. She was talking to a massive wild wolf as if it were a frightened dog. Yet something in its expression changed. Not aggression. Not fear. Relief. The realization made her chest tighten. Before she could understand why, the wolf's knees gave way. It lowered itself heavily onto the wet ground and remained there. Evelyn's pulse quickened. Every instinct told her she should leave immediately. Instead, she found herself moving closer. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered that this meeting was not an accident. And for the first time since her rejection, she felt something she thought she had lost forever. Purpose. The rain softened slightly as Evelyn stepped into the clearing, though thunder still echoed through the mountains beyond the forest. The enormous wolf remained where it had collapsed, its sides rising and falling with slow, uneven breaths. Up close, it looked even larger than she had imagined. Its dark fur shimmered beneath the rain, almost silver at the edges whenever lightning flashed overhead. Every instinct told her she should be terrified. Instead, she felt concern. Deep, overwhelming concern. The wolf lifted its head slightly as she approached. Those silver eyes followed her every movement. They were not the eyes of a normal animal. There was awareness in them, understanding, intelligence that seemed impossible. Evelyn stopped several feet away and carefully lowered herself to one knee. "I am not going to hurt you," she said softly. The words felt strange in the quiet clearing. The wolf did not growl. It did not retreat. It simply watched her. A gust of wind swept through the trees, carrying the scent she had noticed earlier. Now it was impossible to ignore. The fragrance surrounded her from every direction. Winter pine, cold stone, fresh snow. It was powerful enough to make her heartbeat quicken. She frowned. No ordinary wolf carried a scent like that. Slowly, she extended one hand. The wolf's ears twitched. For a moment, she thought it might pull away. Instead, it lowered its head slightly. The gesture felt almost like permission. Evelyn's fingertips brushed the thick fur along its shoulder. Warmth instantly spread through her hand. She blinked in surprise. The storm had left her frozen to the bone, yet the wolf's body felt like a source of steady heat in the middle of the rain. A strange sensation moved through her chest. Not fear, not anxiety, something softer, familiar, comforting. The feeling made no sense. She barely knew what she was looking at. Yet sitting beside this mysterious creature felt safer than standing among her own pack had ever felt. The wolf closed its eyes briefly. The tension in its massive frame seemed to ease beneath her touch. Evelyn stared in disbelief. "You are exhausted, aren't you?" she whispered. Another flash of lightning illuminated the clearing. This time she noticed something she had missed before. A faint glow beneath the wolf's dark fur. She leaned closer. The light disappeared. She blinked. Perhaps the storm was playing tricks on her eyes. Yet a moment later she saw it again. A faint silver shimmer moving beneath the surface like moonlight trapped beneath water. Her breath caught. Stories from childhood suddenly surfaced in her mind. Ancient stories. Legends about powerful wolves blessed by the moon goddess herself. Wolves capable of things ordinary packs could barely imagine. She had always dismissed those tales as fantasy. Yet sitting here now, staring into those impossible silver eyes, she was not so certain. The wolf suddenly stiffened. Its head snapped toward the forest behind them. Evelyn followed its gaze. At first she heard nothing except rain dripping from branches. Then came the distant sound of voices carried by the wind. Wolves. Several of them. Searching. The wolf immediately tried to rise. Its legs trembled beneath its weight. Evelyn instinctively reached out to steady it even though she knew how ridiculous that was. The creature towered over her. Yet before she could say anything, the silver glow beneath its fur brightened. The wolf looked directly into her eyes, and for the briefest moment, Evelyn could have sworn it was trying to tell her something. The voices drifted closer through the trees, carried by the restless wind. Evelyn could not make out the words, but she could hear urgency in them. Whoever was searching the forest was not wandering by accident. They were looking for something, or someone. The wolf remained motionless for a second, its silver eyes fixed on her. Then it slowly turned its head toward the approaching sounds. The faint glow beneath its fur pulsed once more before fading. Evelyn felt her pulse quicken. "They are searching for you, aren't they?" she whispered. The wolf did not answer, yet something in its expression made her feel as though she already knew the truth. Another gust of wind swept through the clearing. This time it carried more than rain. It carried her scent. Evelyn froze. A strange warmth suddenly spread through her body. Not heat from the weather. Something deeper. Something she had never experienced before. The feeling radiated outward from her chest and seemed to flow into the storm itself. The wolf reacted instantly. Its head snapped toward her. Those silver eyes widened. The air between them seemed to change. Evelyn frowned. She could not explain it. The forest smelled different now. Sharper. Richer. Even the rain felt charged with energy. The wolf slowly rose to its feet despite its exhaustion. Its gaze never left her face. For the first time, uncertainty appeared in those intelligent eyes. The creature looked powerful enough to command the entire forest, yet in that moment it seemed caught off guard by something it had not expected. By her, Evelyn took an uneasy step backward. "What is happening?" she asked quietly. The warmth continued to spread. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears. The strange sensation felt connected to the wolf somehow, connected to the storm, connected to the moment their eyes met. A distant voice suddenly called out from the trees. Closer now, much closer. The wolf immediately moved in front of her. Not aggressively, protectively. The action stunned her. Rain dripped from its dark fur as it positioned itself between her and the approaching voices. Evelyn stared. Nobody had ever stood in front of her like that before. Nobody had ever chosen her first. The realization struck harder than she expected. The voices grew louder. Branches snapped somewhere beyond the clearing. Whoever was coming would arrive within moments. The wolf glanced toward the forest and then back at Evelyn. It seemed to make a decision. Slowly, it turned and began moving toward a narrow path hidden between the rocks at the far side of the clearing. After several steps, it stopped and looked back. Waiting. Evelyn hesitated. Following a mysterious wolf into an unknown part of the forest sounded like the worst decision of her life. Yet remaining here felt even more dangerous. The voices continued approaching. Her choice vanished. Taking a steadying breath, she followed. The wolf guided her through twisting trees and slippery stone paths concealed beneath the storm. Several minutes later, they reached the base of a rocky hillside. There, hidden behind a curtain of ivy and rain, stood the dark entrance to a cave. The wolf disappeared inside. Evelyn lingered at the entrance for only a second before stepping after it. Thunder boomed outside. The storm continued raging beyond the rocks. But as she crossed into the shelter of the cave, she had the unmistakable feeling that her life had just taken a path from which there would be no return. The cave stretched deeper than Evelyn expected, its stone walls shielding them from the worst of the storm. Rain still echoed faintly beyond the entrance, but inside, an uneasy silence settled between her and the mysterious wolf. She stood near the wall, catching her breath, while the enormous creature moved farther into the shadows. Water dripped from its dark fur onto the stone floor. The silver glow she had noticed earlier appeared again, brighter now, pulsing beneath its coat like moonlight trapped beneath ice. Evelyn watched carefully. Something was changing. The wolf lowered its head and remained perfectly still. The air inside the cave suddenly felt heavier. A strange energy filled the space, causing the tiny hairs on her arms to rise. Her pulse quickened. She took one cautious step forward. "Are you hurt?" she asked softly. The wolf's ears twitched at the sound of her voice. For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then the silver light expanded. It spread through the darkness in quiet waves, illuminating the cave walls around them. Evelyn stared in disbelief. Every childhood story she had ever heard suddenly felt real. The glow intensified until she had to shield her eyes. A rush of wind swept through the cave despite the absence of any opening. Then the light began to fade. Slowly, gradually. When Evelyn lowered her hand, the wolf was gone. A man stood where the creature had been, her breath caught in her throat. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and completely motionless, as though conserving every ounce of strength he possessed. Dark hair, damp from the storm, fell across his forehead. His clothing was travel-worn and soaked with rain. Yet nothing about him appeared ordinary. The same silver eyes stared back at her from the shadows. The same impossible eyes. Evelyn stumbled backward. Her heart hammered against her ribs. What? The word barely escaped her lips. The stranger closed his eyes briefly as though exhausted. When he opened them again, he studied her with quiet caution. Neither spoke. The silence stretched between them. Finally, he exhaled slowly. You should not be here. His voice was deep and calm, carrying the weight of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Evelyn blinked. Out of all the things she expected, that was not one of them. I could say the same thing about you, she replied. For the first time, something resembling amusement flickered across his face. It vanished almost immediately. The strange warmth she had felt in the clearing returned. Stronger now. The scent of pine and winter filled the cave once more. The man seemed to notice it too. His expression tightened. He turned away as if creating distance would somehow solve the problem. Evelyn frowned. Who are you? She asked. The question lingered in the silence. Thunder rumbled beyond the cave entrance. The stranger remained quiet for several moments before answering. Someone who was hoping not to be found tonight. His response only deepened the mystery. Yet before Evelyn could ask another question, distant voices echoed outside the cave. Closer than before. The stranger immediately became alert, his silver eyes fixed on the entrance. A look of frustration crossed his face. Not fear. Frustration. As though the interruption had arrived at exactly the wrong moment. Then he looked back at Evelyn, and for the first time, she saw genuine concern in his eyes. If they find you here with me, he said quietly, everything is about to change. The voices outside continued moving through the forest, sometimes fading beneath the storm, and sometimes returning strong enough to make Evelyn hold her breath. Inside the cave, the tension felt almost tangible. The stranger stood near the entrance, listening carefully to every sound carried by the wind. Rainwater dripped from his dark hair onto the stone floor. Even in the dim light, there was something commanding about him, something that made the cave itself seem smaller. Evelyn remained where she was, her thoughts racing. Just an hour ago, she had been a rejected Omega wandering through a storm with nowhere to go. Now she was standing inside a hidden cave beside a man who could become a wolf and who spoke as though entire kingdoms moved around him. Who are they? She finally asked. The stranger did not answer immediately. His silver eyes remained fixed on the darkness beyond the entrance. People who are trying to protect me, he said at last, and people who would rather not see me found. The answer raised more questions than it solved. Evelyn folded her arms against the chill. That is not really an answer. To her surprise, a faint smile appeared. It transformed his face for only a second before disappearing again. No, he admitted quietly. It is not. Thunder rolled across the mountains. The storm showed no sign of ending. The stranger took a slow breath, then stepped farther away from the entrance as though forcing himself to relax. Yet Evelyn noticed the way his hands tightened briefly. The way his shoulders remained tense. Whatever burden he carried, it was not a small one. The strange warmth that had connected them earlier still lingered in the air. Every time she looked at him, she felt it. A quiet pull she could not explain. Apparently, he felt it too. More than once she caught him creating distance between them without seeming aware he was doing it. The realization only deepened her confusion. Minutes passed in uneasy silence. Then the stranger suddenly closed his eyes. His expression tightened. Evelyn immediately noticed the change. What is wrong? She asked. He shook his head once. Nothing. It was clearly not the truth. A faint silver glow appeared beneath his skin for a brief moment before vanishing. The same glow she had seen beneath the wolf's fur. His breathing remained controlled, but something about him seemed strained, like someone carrying an invisible weight. Evelyn hesitated before taking a cautious step closer. You do not look fine. His eyes opened. For a moment, he simply stared at her. The storm outside roared louder. Then something unexpected happened. The tension in his expression eased slightly. Not completely, just enough for her to notice. Most people would have left by now, he said quietly. Evelyn thought about the pack she had left behind, the people who had turned away when she needed them most. A sad smile touched her lips. Most people left me first. The words hung in the air between them. The stranger said nothing, yet something changed in his gaze. Something softer, more understanding. Outside, the voices had finally disappeared into the storm. But neither of them noticed, because for the first time that night, they were paying attention only to each other. The storm continued through the night, but inside the cave time seemed to move differently. Evelyn sat near the stone wall, listening to the distant rain while the stranger remained across from her. Neither spoke for a while. The silence was not uncomfortable anymore. It felt strangely natural. The warmth in the air persisted, subtle but impossible to ignore. Every now and then she caught him watching her before looking away again. It should have unsettled her. Instead, it made her curious. "You still have not told me your name," she finally said. The stranger looked toward the cave entrance where faint moonlight filtered through the storm clouds. For a moment, she thought he would avoid the question again. Then he answered, "Damien." The name sounded familiar, not because she knew him, but because she had heard it somewhere before. Before she could place it, another sound echoed outside. This time it was not voices. It was the distant howl of wolves. Several of them. The call rolled across the mountains before fading into the night. Damien's expression immediately changed. His eyes narrowed. He stood and moved toward the entrance. Evelyn followed a few steps behind. Together they looked out into the storm. Far below, scattered points of light moved through the forest. Lanterns. Dozens of them. Her eyes widened. "They are still searching." Damien nodded. "They will not stop." Something about the way he said it made her stomach tighten. Those people were not simply looking for a missing traveler. Whoever Damien was, he mattered. A great deal. Evelyn glanced toward him. The pieces were beginning to form a picture she did not fully understand. The strange glow. The wolves searching through a storm. The impossible transformation. The commanding presence he carried without effort. Her pulse quickened. "Damien," she said carefully. "Who exactly are you?" For the first time since they met, genuine hesitation appeared on his face. He remained silent for several seconds. Then the decision seemed to settle inside him. He turned toward her completely. "You deserve the truth." The words were quiet, serious. Outside, thunder rumbled across the distant mountains. Damien exhaled slowly. The men searching this forest served the Northern Crown. Evelyn felt her breath catch. Every wolf in the territory knew the Northern Crown. It ruled over dozens of packs stretching hundreds of miles beyond the mountains. "Then you are part of the Royal Guard?" she asked. Damien almost smiled. "No." The answer came gently. "I am the one they serve." The world seemed to stop. Rain continued falling outside. Water dripped from the cave ceiling. Yet Evelyn heard none of it. Her mind replayed the words again and again. The one they serve. Suddenly, every story she had heard as a child rushed back. The powerful ruler with silver eyes. The king who united rival packs. The leader whose presence alone could silence entire councils. Her knees nearly gave out. "That is impossible," she whispered. Damien held her gaze. There was no arrogance in his expression. No pride. Only truth. "I am Damien Blackwood." The name struck like lightning. Evelyn stared at him in complete disbelief. The Alpha King. The most powerful wolf in the Northern Territories had spent the night hidden beside her in a cave. The realization left her speechless. But what frightened her most was not who he was. It was the look in his eyes as he watched her. Because for the first time since revealing the truth, Damien Blackwood looked uncertain. As though the opinion of one rejected Omega suddenly mattered more than anything else in the world. For several seconds, Evelyn could not speak. She simply stared at Damien Blackwood, searching for any sign that this was some elaborate misunderstanding. There was none. Everything suddenly made sense. The silver eyes. The wolves searching through the storm. The quiet authority in his voice. The impossible transformation she had witnessed with her own eyes. Yet knowing the truth only created a new problem. She was standing beside the most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories. A rejected Omega who had been unwanted only hours ago had somehow become the one person sharing his secret. The realization left her overwhelmed. Damien seemed to understand. He did not move closer. He did not pressure her for a response. Instead, he waited. Outside, the storm began to weaken. The rain softened from a roar to a steady rhythm against the mountainside. Dawn was still hours away, But the darkness no longer felt endless. Evelyn finally found her voice. Why would the Alpha King be hiding in a cave during a storm? Damien looked away for a moment. His expression grew distant. Because even kings cannot control everything. The answer carried more weight than the words themselves. Before she could ask another question, movement appeared outside the cave. Both of them turned immediately. Lantern light flickered between the trees below. More searchers. Far more than before. Their numbers stretched through the forest like a river of gold. Damien's jaw tightened. They found the area faster than I expected. Evelyn felt anxiety rise in her chest. Will they come here? He nodded once. Eventually. The certainty in his voice made her uneasy. If the royal search parties discovered her here, what would happen? She imagined the reaction of the packs. A rejected Omega alone with the Alpha King during a night no one could explain. Rumors would spread across the territory before sunrise. The thought made her stomach twist. As if sensing her fear, Damien looked directly at her. You have done nothing wrong. Evelyn almost laughed. That has never stopped people from talking. To her surprise, Damien understood immediately. Something in his expression softened. No, I suppose it has not. Silence settled again. Then a distant horn echoed through the mountains. One long call. The search parties responded instantly. Lights shifted through the forest below. Damien exhaled slowly. They know I am close. Evelyn glanced toward him. Then maybe you should go. The moment the words left her mouth, something unexpected happened. A strange ache appeared in her chest. The idea of watching him disappear into the darkness bothered her more than it should have. Damien seemed affected too. His silver eyes held hers for several seconds. The warmth that had followed them all night returned stronger than ever. Neither understood it completely, yet neither could deny it anymore. Then the cave entrance suddenly filled with light. Not moonlight. Lantern light. Multiple voices echoed from outside. Close now. Very close. Damien immediately stepped forward. Instinctively. Protectively. Evelyn's pulse raced. The search had finally reached them. But what happened next surprised her even more. Damien did not look worried about himself. His attention remained entirely on her. And in that moment, Evelyn realized the Alpha King was no longer concerned about being found. He was concerned about what the world would do when it discovered her. The lantern light grew brighter until shadows danced across the cave walls. Evelyn's heart pounded as several figures appeared at the entrance. They wore dark cloaks marked with the silver crest of the Northern Crown. The moment they saw Damien, every one of them stopped. Then, without hesitation, they bowed their heads. The sight alone confirmed everything. There was no room left for doubt. The man she had met in the storm truly was the Alpha King. Your Majesty, one of the guards said, relief evident in his voice. We have been searching all night. Damien gave a small nod, but his attention never fully left Evelyn. The guards seemed to notice. Their eyes shifted toward her. Curiosity appeared immediately, then surprise, then confusion. None of them expected to find an unknown Omega standing beside their king. The silence that followed felt heavy. Evelyn suddenly became aware of how out of place she looked. Her dress was soaked from the storm. Her hair hung loose around her shoulders. Only hours ago, she had been publicly rejected by her pack. Now royal guards were staring at her, as though she were part of a mystery they could not solve. One of the older men stepped forward. Your Majesty, the council has been demanding updates since sunset. The entire territory is worried. Damien remained calm. I am aware. The guard hesitated before speaking again. And the young woman? The question hung in the air. Evelyn instinctively lowered her gaze. She expected distance, politeness, gratitude for helping him survive the storm. Then she expected their paths to separate forever. After all, kings belonged in palaces. Rejected Omegas belonged nowhere. That was how the world worked. Yet Damien surprised everyone, including her. He stepped closer until he stood beside her. Not in front of her. Not behind her. Beside her. Equal. Deliberate. Visible. The guards exchanged startled glances. Evelyn could hardly breathe. Damien looked toward his men. His silver eyes reflected the lantern light. Evelyn Carter helped me when she had every reason to walk away. His voice carried effortlessly through the cave. She showed kindness without asking for anything in return. No one spoke. The storm outside had nearly faded now. Only gentle rain remained. Damien continued. Tonight, when others searched for a king, She simply chose to help someone who needed it. Evelyn felt her chest tighten. No one had ever spoken about her that way before. Not her pack. Not her former mate. No one. The older guard lowered his head respectfully. Whatever questions he carried, he kept them to himself. Dawn slowly began to brighten the horizon beyond the trees. Pale silver light touched the forest. A new day was arriving. Damien turned toward Evelyn. For a moment the guards, the kingdom, and the storm seemed to disappear. "You asked me earlier why everything was changing," he said quietly. Evelyn nodded. Damien looked toward the rising light beyond the cave entrance and then back at her. A faint smile touched his face. "Because sometimes the storm takes away what was never meant for us." His gaze softened. "And sometimes it brings us exactly where we belong." Outside, the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds. Golden light spilled across the mountains. The storm was finally over. Yet neither of them noticed the sunrise as much as they noticed each other. And somewhere deep within both their hearts, a new chapter had already begun.